This program is brought to you by Community Trust Bank, Medical City, Bid Select, and the Neely School of Business at TCU. Welcome to Platforms, the life-lifting news program for women. Now, here's your host, Shivaun Palmer.
Hey, welcome back everybody to Platforms, a life-lifting news program for women. I'm continuing my conversation with His Excellency Saeed Jawad. He is the Afghan ambassador to the United States. We're having a fascinating conversation about his country. Ambassador, when we went to break, you were talking a little bit about the emergence of the Taliban in your country. And I was just curious, when you travel to Afghanistan, what type of security do you have to have as an ambassador to get around the country?
It depends on where I travel, actually. If it's southern Afghanistan or area where there are a lot of fighting and security challenges, it's pretty detailed. There's a lot of security details, unfortunately. But recently, I just came back 2 weeks ago from a vacation in Afghanistan, where I went to central Afghanistan, to the province of Bamyan, with my wife and my son. There, we had a minimal security detail, and we traveled extensively by car to different parts.
It is, because of so much war and conflict, it really is a beautiful country, though, and it's predominantly rugged mountains. Is that the topography of your country?
High mountains in the northern Afghanistan, and then central Afghanistan have these very high plateaus, beautiful lakes. That's the area that we went. It's the first national park of Afghanistan. Beautiful lakes, very similar to Lake Tahoe, very green. And then southern Afghanistan will become a lot more flat and arid.
So, and you know, an industry that many countries go after, I mean, obviously right now with the current conflict is tourism, but tell our audience, what is the most beautiful thing about the Afghan people in your mind?
Afghanistan is located on the crossroad of trade and civilizations, from China to Greece, from India to Siberia. People have interacted with each other, have passed through Afghanistan. So you do see the impact of all these different cultures and civilizations. So Afghanistan is truly a mosaic of different cultures. And the beauty of the Afghan culture is that they blend them into a unique Afghan way.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about the major religions, the Sunni and Shia Muslims. How would you define those two groups? What are the characteristics?
Majority of the Islamic countries have a Shia minority, except for Iran and Syria, where the Shia are majority. The differences are not that big. It's different interpretation of the same holy book of Quran. In Afghanistan also we have about probably 20% Shia living mostly in central Afghanistan and in certain big cities.
Mm-hmm. Let's transition a little bit over now for our audience, which is predominantly women. Let's talk about the situation for women and girls in Afghanistan. I mean, for Western women, looking at the reports coming out, some of the horrifying situations for young girls, the Taliban burning down schools that were built for girls, and the illiteracy rate is extremely high in Afghanistan. I think only 12% of the women there are literate. Can you speak to what the current government is trying to do to improve the lives of women and girls?
We have changed the laws to provide gender equality and more access for women to job and education. But changing the law is frankly the easiest part to do. The real change will take place through education and economic empowerment. And we are investing a lot in education. Just during the Taliban, for instance, in the Afghan universities, 4,000 students were enrolled, all male. Today, 89,000 students are enrolled in 17 universities in Afghanistan. And close to 35% of those are girls.
Okay.
And same thing with the schools. 7 million children are going back to school, and about 37% of these are girls. So the true investment in the future of Afghanistan is by educating a new generation of Afghans, both male and female, but particularly females. The credit should really go to the Afghan women. They are taking charge. They are leading these efforts, and they are members of the parliament, they're senators, they're governors, they're ambassadors. So they're filling all the jobs in the government. And when you sit down in Kabul, for instance, with the students of the American University of Afghanistan, the way they see the world, the changes that they would like to see in their country is tremendous.
It is tremendous. It's the young people many times, isn't it, Mr.
Absolutely,
Ambassador?
yes.
What about communication? What are the major forms of communication in Afghanistan currently?
Fortunately, cell phone, for instance, is very, very widely spread. This is an area that the first company that came in and invested a couple of $1 million. That company is worth now $1 billion. That shows the growth and the potential of doing business in Afghanistan. But cell phones are used extensively, not only as a means of communication. People are now even banking with their cell phones. We are paying the salaries of the police officer through their cell phones.
Through their cell phones?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What about, let's talk about the system in terms of communication and cell phones and so forth. You talked about educating women, but is the government committed, as these women are educated, they're coming out, what jobs are going to be available for these women? How do you keep them in the country to take that brain power and keep it in Afghanistan?
One area that we would like them to work for is the government, of course, but a lot of these women with their ambitions, their ideas, they are going to the private sector, which is an important component of building Afghanistan and the civil society.
Exactly.
So the majority of the Afghans that are educated now, especially women, are returning. There are a few here and there that would rather stay, and frankly, there are so many opportunities outside Afghanistan, and we don't want to force them by violent means to go back.
Sure.
But they do see these opportunities in Afghanistan. They do return because it's their country. They know that the imprint that they leave, the impact that they make in Afghanistan is much bigger.
Absolutely.
When the society is changing,
Then
and there's a lot of
abroad.
appreciation for their work in their own country.
Talk about the impact of high-profile women like Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and former First Lady Laura Bush, who are both very committed to helping women worldwide, but particularly in your country. How has their active participation made an impact?
Mrs. Bush has truly been a figure that inspired many Afghan women. She has been to Afghanistan many times, but not necessarily in Kabul, but she traveled to the outside Kabul. She visited Bamyan, the province that I just mentioned that we went to vacation. She has been truly a source of inspiration. She has helped Afghan students, universities, private sector, and Secretary Clinton also has been involved on Afghanistan issues for many, many years. She's a very good friend of mine, and she is really keeping a close eye on the progress of the women's situation. We are very, very fortunate to have high-ranking U.S. officials and public figures such as Mrs. Bush and Secretary Clinton and others focusing on Afghanistan and Afghan issues.
Mm-hmm. Very powerful ladies. Let's talk about the life expectancy. I was a little taken aback. It's relatively young for people living in Afghanistan right now. I think it's 44, 45 for both men and women. So how are you as a country addressing this in terms of basic health care system to keep your people healthy?
Child mortality rate is still very, very high in Afghanistan. When we started rebuilding the healthcare system in Afghanistan, we made building clinics as a first priority, not building hospitals, because a lot of, especially women, are dying while giving birth, and a lot of children are dying during the first 6 months of their birth. So today we have increased the access to the healthcare on the countryside from 10% to almost 80%.
Interesting. Okay.
This is basic healthcare availability throughout the country. And frankly, now we are moving to the next phase of building hospitals and others. Unfortunately, in a country like Afghanistan, where the means are limited, if someone is dying from heart condition or cancer, and if we can, with the same expenses of treating him, if we can save 20 or 30 women, we would rather invest on that.
Exactly.
So that's why we made building clinics a priority. Now we are expanding that to the hospitals and extensive health care for everyone.
Ambassador, if you could hold that thought for just a moment. We will continue our conversation with His Excellency Saeed Jawad in just a moment. This is Shivaun Palmer with Platforms, the life-lifting news program for women.